Good evening, Robert Scribbler. Thank you for joining me for another climate change and clean energy video blog. Now for this segment, I'm going to provide you guys with a roundup of climate policy and energy policy related news, both across Europe and across the US. And for the first report, it has recently been noted that the Greek island of Tilos has become the first 100% renewables island in the Mediterranean. This has been enabled by both wind and solar, as well as the application of batteries to the island's electricity grid to enable a 24/7 coverage for the island from clean energy sources. Now, it's worth noting that this 100% renewable energy is for the power sector alone, not for the transportation sector, but this is a major step forward and represents a major opportunity for island nations around the world due to the fact that power costs for islands tend to be higher, and the rapidly falling cost of wind and solar and batteries is enabling islands to take advantage of the clean energy transition before other regions of the world. But it's worth noting that wind and solar and battery-powered grids are becoming more available to numerous locations, and this is a key aspect of climate change response. In fact, the primary driver of human-forced climate change is fossil fuel burning and related carbon emissions. And the sooner we get that to net negative and net zero and net negative, the better off we will be when it comes to facing down the impacts of human-caused climate change and the less catastrophic impacts we will tend to see. Now, it's also worth noting that Sweden has recently been reported by Jeremy Leggett as being well ahead of schedule en route to its 100% renewable energy for the power sector target by 2040. Apparently, Sweden is building enough wind turbines to reach its 2030 renewable energy target by the end of this year. So 12 years ahead of schedule for Sweden, and this also enabled by falling wind energy costs. Sweden is installing a massive number of wind turbines and is expected to have a 7.5 gigawatt capacity by the end of this year. So a big move for Sweden on the clean energy front. Even as states in Europe are pushing as hard as they can to transition away from fossil fuel burning, we have a number of lobbyists for fossil fuel industry working for the Trump administration to do everything they can to try and enable coal to restart in the United States. Now, coal has recently seen some major recessions in its market share and loss of market share and loss of generating capacity due to combined competition from renewable energy and natural gas. And with renewable energy prices falling, the installation rate for wind and solar across the US continues to be quite high. But despite these realities, it's not stopping individuals such as William Wehrum, who has for a long time worked for polluting industries, trying to deregulate standards for clean air and clean water in order to try to reduce costs for coal and enable coal to try and compete with other energy sources. Now, this deregulation is also a big risk to the public in that it risks not only more air pollution and more water pollution, but also less regulation of harmful coal-related substances like ash. And it's just generally a bad policy overall. It's unlikely that coal is going to be able to compete with other sources of energy, but these efforts are major blow to Obama's Clean Power Plan, which would further accelerate the United States' transition to clean energy and establish its leadership role in clean energy vis-a-vis countries like China and clean energy leaders in Europe. In all honesty, the US has the capacity to really push ahead and be very competitive in clean energy markets. But these movements by the Trump administration continue to sandbag development despite broad support of clean energy across the United States. This broad support of clean energy and responses to human-caused climate change were recently highlighted as New York City took strong steps to cut carbon emissions from its largest source, carbon-emitting source, that being buildings. New York City is involved in a campaign to get more of its energy sources from renewables, but is also working hard to increase energy efficiency for buildings by steps of 20% and 40% over the coming years. And this combination will enable New York City to radically reduce its overall carbon footprint. So just some updates on clean energy related and policy initiatives and unfortunate actions by those fighting the transition to clean energy, which is a necessary response to human-caused climate change, as the main driver of human-caused climate change is fossil fuel burning, which produces around 35 billion tons of carbon dioxide entering the atmosphere every year. And that is a severe blow to the climate system. There is no way to respond to human-caused climate change without transitioning to clean energy. And the longer we wait, the worse the impacts from climate change will be. So some good news on some fronts and some not so good news from regressive forces within the Trump administration. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be chatting with you soon.